As a result of COVID, businesses are realizing that they actually have to manage their workforce virtually. They need to find new customers without being able to go to a trade show. They need to manage disrupted supply chains. WRAP has been designed by the Toronto Region Board of Trade to help companies improve their digital maturity during these challenging times. A participant in the program will have their digital needs assessment done, their DNA. Once we have their DNA, we are able to direct them into the programs that help educate companies, help them create a plan, help them get in touch with the resources that are going to support them as they manage through these challenges. The program is about long-term improvement for businesses, about running your business more efficiently. Even after the pandemic, that is going to be a critical thing for any business, and in this case, it's going to make all of those businesses stronger. A business can sign up for the program simply by registering at our website, and then we'll get them into that digital needs assessment. Well, good morning, everyone, and thank you so much for joining us today. We're really thrilled to be here with you. My name is Lee Smout, and I'm the president of the World Trade Center Toronto. Welcome to the latest installment of the WRAP Webcast series, proudly presented by Innovate Cities. It's a series that would not be possible without the support of our Scale Up Institute Toronto sponsors, Air Canada, BLG, and Innovate Cities. Our WRAP program sponsors CIBC, Cisco, KPMG, Rogers for Business, and SoftChoice, and really importantly, funding from the Government of Canada and the Government of Ontario. And we also have partnerships with the board's principal sponsors, the Globe and Mail and Scotiabank, which are critical to all of our events. So just a couple of notes straight off the top. If your video is lagging or it freezes, there's another stream that can be accessed by clicking the Switch Stream button on the right side of your screen. For any other technical issues, click Request Help in the bottom right corner of your screen, and someone will be in touch right away. To submit questions at any point, please click on the Questions tab. And to answer our polling questions, which Aaron will be introducing, please click on the polling tab. And finally, a recording of the webcast will be available on supportbusiness.bot.com. I feel like the video you saw a moment ago gives you a sense of our recovery activation program, otherwise known as WRAP. And I'd just like to highlight why you should sign up right away. WRAP was designed to test your company's digital maturity and then give you the tools to improve it so that your business can survive and thrive during the COVID pandemic and beyond. Whether you're having difficulty connecting with customers or struggling to manage increasing demand, WRAP will provide intensive workshop-oriented programs with Canada's top digital experts who will help you find the right digital solutions for your business. If you're wondering how to get started, it's easy. All you have to do is visit wrap.bot.com and take our digital needs assessment. It takes about 20 minutes to complete, and it assesses the digital maturity of your business and how it ranks relative to your industry. The best part is, thanks to the support of our business and government partners, there is no cost to participate in any WRAP programming for businesses across Ontario, at least until June. So sign up now. Okay, and on to this morning's webcast. We're here with a phenomenal group of experts to explore smart cities technologies and the innovative solutions they provide to rapidly changing urban infrastructure landscape. After today's session, we'd love to engage any interested companies in joining two different programs we are running in Barcelona in November. And who doesn't want to be in Barcelona in November? The first is a trade mission to the Smart Cities World Expo, where we're partnering with the local trade commissioner service to help you bring your smart city solutions to the world. And believe me, the world does come to this event. It'll be our fourth visit, and it's an amazing conference, which will have very targeted programming for your business, though, not just the conference. The second is a very specific exchange program with the Catalonia region that will include city planners and procurement officials, city infrastructure developers, and the companies that are developing innovative urban technology solutions. This is all part of what we call our digital sales activation, and it's designed with a specific purpose of creating cross-border business development opportunities for you. So yeah, I really hope you'll think about taking advantage of it. To join either or both these programs, reach out to us at World Trade Center and we'll fill you in on all the details. And to introduce and manage our program today, I'm excited to be joined once again by our brilliant moderator, Aaron Burry, CEO and co-founder of Willful, an estate planning startup. Named one of Marketing Magazine's top 30 under 30, Aaron Burry is an entrepreneur, marketer, startup advisor, and investor. Erin's also a frequent speaker for Speaker Spotlight, a monthly columnist for the Financial Post, a tech commentator on CTV News, and has been published in the New York Times, Forbes, and CNN. And if that's not enough, she works with us here at WRAP. So Erin, we're grateful to have you here with us today. And with that, I'm going to hand it over to you.
Thank you so much, Lee, and hi, everyone. I personally know that I would love to be in Barcelona in November, so those programs sound amazing. Good morning, everyone, and welcome to this installment of the WRAP webcast series, 3 Smart City Solutions to Upgrade and Drive Your Business Forward. As Lee mentioned, my name is Erin Burry. I'll be moderating today's discussion to keep it flowing and hopefully add a dose of my very terrible jokes. And I'm very excited to be here. I'm equally excited to be introducing our keynote speaker, which is kicking off today's event, Hugh O'Reilly, the Executive Director of Innovate Cities. Hugh is also the president and CEO of Acuity Global and is the former president and chief executive officer of OP Trust. He is currently on the boards of Bridging Finance, Inc. and Van City Community Investment Bank, and is a senior fellow with the C.D. Howe Institute and an executive in residence with the Global Risk Institute. So another person who has a few hats that he's wearing at any given time. Thank you so much for joining us today, Hugh, and we're excited to hear your keynote. But before we jump into it, we'd like to ask the audience a poll question to get you involved. Make sure you've had your coffee. The poll question is, are you familiar with the concept of a smart city and the technologies it uses? A, yes, you are. B, you have a vague understanding of it. C, no, you're not familiar with it. To answer this poll, you can click on the polling tab to the right of your screen, and I will wait with bated breath to see these results come in. So it sounds like if I were answering this, I'd probably say, yes, I'm familiar with the concept of it, but if you asked me to articulate the details, I'm going to leave that to Hugh. And it looks like we have some folks, about half of us are familiar with the concept of a smart city. Some folks have a vague understanding, and some folks absolutely not familiar with it. So this is going to bode well for Hugh's keynote, where he's going to talk to you about all things smart cities. So I will hand it over to you, Hugh, and we're excited to hear from you.
Thanks very much, Erin. I really appreciate the opportunity to speak today and also to speak with some of the innovators that Innovate Cities is associated with. So if we can move to the next slide, I'm mindful of everyone's time. Innovate Cities we are funded by our federal partner, which is FedDev Ontario. Our mission, as we see it, is to advance innovation infrastructure in Southern Ontario, and particularly in the urban centers. Our approach is we want to, in developing the infrastructure and in working with partners like the Board of Trade, we have several key focal points. First, we are working with the Board of Trade, and there's more to come on this, on a marketplace where we will bring together vendors and innovators with a view toward making sure that Canadian innovation and technology is added into the urban environment to create the best experience for citizens, residents, and building users. Second thing we're doing is we are building a data trust. Our data trust will have as its core fundamental principle the idea of privacy. The purpose of the data trust is several-fold. First of all, it is critical to advancing innovation because innovators need to have access to data. Second, and I think perhaps most important, the role of a data trust is to help people who live, visit, reside, work in the urban environment to make sure that the urban environment is responsive to them, meets their needs, and anticipates their needs. You could go to the next slide. In this area, these are 3 key functions of Innovate Cities and how we're dividing our work. First is what we're calling City Stack. We're building, we have stacks of technology that we are able to deploy into the built environment. We have the capability, you'll be hearing today from Raf Wong of ThoughtWire. We have the capability with the ThoughtWire product to make any building smart. We have the capability of helping businesses return to work through our Safe Space product. We also have the capability to make those buildings more energy efficient. You'll also be hearing from Craig McClellan today, who is the founder and leader of ThinkOn. The data that Innovate Cities uses, the data from our data trust, all of this is stored in Canada. The story Craig is going to tell today about ThinkOn and its capabilities will give you a real sense of just how strong and capable Canadian capabilities are. And you will also hear from Craig Clydesdale of Utilities Without Borders, who will speak to energy efficiency and the things he's doing. Our second component is what we are calling CitySphere. We think it's really important both to build the community of a smart city in the sense of our neighbors and friends, but also to create an innovation ecosystem that allows Canada to move ahead and be a leader. Lastly is Cityscape, which is a marketplace which I spoke to earlier. I see I have about 2 minutes left, I think. So I'm going to be within my time. I've already spoken to the data trust. Lastly, I want to speak to the issue of privacy. We know that in the world we're in today, and in the use of, we can go to the last slide, in the use of data, in the use of how people relate to technology, we are all concerned about privacy. We're all concerned about making sure that our data, we have control over it, that it's used for purposes that are appropriate. And I want to say that the combination of working with ThinkOn, our commitment to privacy, as well as our privacy officer, we will be announcing shortly, we will be able to demonstrate that we respect privacy, that individuals will control how their data is used, and and any data that is collected will be de-identified at source. So I think that Canada has the potential to lead the world. What we need to do is bring our innovators together into the market. We need to promote our innovators, and we need to really understand that the innovation that we have available in Canada, our intellectual capabilities, give us the potential to be a leading country through the rest of the 21st century. So with that, Aaron, I will turn it over to the panel. And I want to thank you again for your kind introduction. And I want to thank the Board of Trade and the Scale Up Institute, because this is, we get a lot of value from the partnership.
Thank you so much, Hugh. I think it's great to hear about all of the initiatives that you're undertaking. And, we've read a lot about the potential for Toronto to be a leader in smart cities, and absolutely privacy is at the forefront, I think, of most businesses' concerns about that. So excited to hear that you're bringing on a privacy officer and that that's also something that you're tackling internally. So thank you so much for that keynote. We're now going to jump into our panel discussion. So to start off, we're going to have each of our panelists introduce themselves and tell you a little bit about the companies they run and help operate. So I'll start with our first panelist, Craig Clydesdale. Can you introduce yourself, Craig, and tell us a little bit about Utilities Without Borders?
Hi, Erin, thank you. I'm Craig Clydesdale, and I'm the CEO of Utility Without Borders. We are a private utility that provides an on-site power solution. We're not restricted by wires and poles, so we have the ability to go everywhere and anywhere. And in today's world, and why we're here with the Innovative City story, power really matters today. In the old days, electricity didn't really matter. If you got it, you got it. If you didn't, who cares? In today's digital world, it's life and death. So we represent the intersection between kilowatts and kilobytes. So what we do is we do an on-site solution. We use a variety of technologies. We have a great deal of flexibility. So we're able to use solar, wind, batteries, tri-generation, all of the different technologies that we put on site. We design it specifically for that particular site. We're typically much less expensive because we can be more efficient. Because we're on site, we're able to get up to 85% efficient, where typically when you buy electricity from a grid, it comes in at about 20% efficient. So we get more bang for our buck. But more importantly, it's not just the efficiency we get in dollars, it's also CO2 efficiency. We can actually operate our facility to minimize, to use the best available renewable energy or whatever it is, to be able to get the result for our client. Where it gets really interesting, though, is as our relationship to Innovate City. We're launching a first project in the GTA. It's going to be an innovative city. We're providing electricity and heat to a client. But interestingly, we also collect data on how the systems run, but we'll be storing our data on the ThinkOn platform, which is a Canadian secure system, and you heard about the privacy. So that we'll be using that. We'll also be using the ThoughtWire digital twin technology and marrying it with our technology. So now we're not just providing power, we're actually interconnected with the way the operation runs, so we can optimize in a secure fashion and be able to make power and the kilowatts and kilobytes an integrated thing as opposed to two separate items. And that's the secret of today's world. Sort of last but not least, imagine a world in a COVID world, imagine an old age home or a seniors facility that loses power. Imagine an industrial warehouse with 200 people that has a wonderful digital structure to be able to do all the management, but loses power. What we provide now is very high quality power. So the real reason our clients are most interested in is to get high quality, resilient power, which helps reduce the risk of or increase the ability to have business continuity.
Thanks, Craig. That's a great way to make it tangible in the impact that that losing power would have on some of these businesses. And as someone who runs a software company, I can tell you that power is pretty essential to our everyday. So it's great to hear about how you're providing some solutions to GTA businesses. Same question for you, Craig McClellan. Two Craigs on the call today. We have two Aarons at Willful, so I totally get that. So Craig M, can you please tell us a little bit more about ThinkOn? I know that Hugh alluded to it, as did Craig C, but would love to hear in your own words more about the company.
Sure, and thank you very much for the opportunity today. Craig McClellan started ThinkOn in 2013. I cannot believe it's our 8th year. Toronto-based. Toronto headquartered. We deliver services across all of North America as well as Europe, Australia, and the Caribbean, but immensely happy to be talking to people in my own city. The company is really founded on the principles of ensuring data is safe and available and useful. So, since the very beginning of time, we've been very much fixated on servicing both private sector organizations as well as public sector organizations. And we've really tried hard to take our business to the point where a lot of the concerns that people may have are easily addressed. We never take them off the table because they're always important to keep talking about because people are very concerned. And I think a lot of times technologists take things for granted that aren't necessarily things you should take for granted. And we're pretty proud of the fact that 100% of our operational team that supports our Canadian infrastructure is based in Canada. We haven't offshored anything. In fact, all of our people that support our core infrastructure have all gone through federal government clearance because we want to make sure that we've got full visibility to the entire supply chain. And supply chain is one of those things that's going to become a hotter topic over the next period of time, I think, because people are starting to realize that, well, masks supply chain is an example of pressure that people didn't realize we would have. The next realm of supply chain management is data. And are we using the right data at the right time in the right way? And we're committed to that. And just to kind of summarize, one of the areas where we're very excited about moving to is we're already thinking about a post-quantum world. What happens to data after quantum compute technology becomes relatively available? Because it's been discussed now at great length in certain circles that all the data that we think is safe today by virtue of traditional encryption is going to have to go through a complete rework. And we're committed to bringing that sort of thinking to this project. We're very excited to be part of this team and working with both Craig's company as well as ThoughtWire. So we're really happy to be here today. I look forward to the discussion.
Thank you, Craig, for that intro. It's great to hear that you've been able to keep your team here at home. And I am not even going to attempt to explain quantum computing. I will just instead move on to our third panelist, Raphael Wong. And I'll ask you to please introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about another company Hugh alluded to in his keynote, ThoughtWire.
Thank you, Aaron. And good morning, everybody. My name is Raphael Wong, and I lead strategic initiatives at ThoughtWire. So ThoughtWire is a software company based in Toronto. We specialize in technology that makes any building smart. And we found our roots in healthcare, and now we're making our way horizontally across different types of built environments, including commercial, industrial, and residential. And I'm sure we'll dig deeper into what the technology does and what it means in the context of smart cities. But I do want to emphasize that because we started our on the company in healthcare, number one, this is an industry that's very complex and regulated, and privacy on patient health information is top of mind. And so it forced us to really factor this into the design of our technology and intellectual property from day one. And because of this environment and the type of use cases and workflows that we support, it's essential that our core technology, the digital twin, allows us to connect information, but also enable the right person at the right time to take action. And that's really where we drive meaningful outcomes. And that's going to play a very critical role in making any city smart.
Thank you, Raphael. I'm interested to hear more about the nuts and bolts of the technology and how you make things smart. So thank you so much to all three of you for introducing yourselves. Now that we know a little bit more about you, we'd love to dive into a conversation on smart cities technologies. So I'm going to go back to Craig C. and ask about the fact that your energy solution is really quite different compared to the public power grid. So can you tell us how you help SMEs gain control over energy costs and save on their monthly electricity bill? And I am clearly personally interested in the answer to this as well.
There's probably two components of why we're unique. And one is the fact that we're on site. The public utility was designed in a time, it was to provide lots of power to lots of people. And it really, again, like I said before, it really didn't matter about quality or control. Today's world, today's clients require that quality. So we're able to put a facility on site. And because we're modular, we can actually take advantage of all of the technologies that are out there. And in the old days, we used to just think about the generation technology. We used to think about tri-generation and using batteries and solar. But we've now added in the ability to manage data and marry to what the building's doing. So again, in the old days, a building would do what it did, and the utility, they'd be like two separate functions. Today, we're actually able to optimize our system perfectly for that one facility because each system is only hooked up to that one facility. And because of that optimization creates the ability, and as we tie into things like what ThoughtWire is doing, not only do they know what people are doing in the building, we know what the effect of the power should be and what it could be. And last but not least, our model is very unique. We've created a model in the past. We've sort of always known that the public utility, we needed something else on top of the public utility. So companies' really only choice was to go out and invest a bunch of money in generation and then all of a sudden get themselves into the generation business. What we did is we created a model where all they have to do is pay their power bills just like they are now. They just pay us their power bills as an operating expense, and all of the capital and all that is provided by us, so they don't have to get into the business. So to them, all they do is pay their power bills, but then they get all the advantages of sustainable, affordable, reliable, and resilient power. And then again, when we can tie in and integrate into the data ability that we have, now we can really do some cool things. So we can actually run the facility perfectly in tune with what they need and want. And that's ultimately very unique in the world that we have today.
Thanks, Craig. That's really helpful. And as long as I can keep it as warm as I like it, because you know that's a constant battle. And when we were in offices on who likes it warm and who likes it cool. So moving over to Craig M, as an expert in solving cloud and data challenges for businesses, can you let us know where you store your data and elaborate on how your technology supports companies to improve operational efficiency and ensure business continuity?
Absolutely. So we have 16 facilities across Canada, starting in Halifax to the east and Kamloops to the west, and in between a large cluster in Montreal and in Toronto. We believe in one of the key tenets of availability is to have diversity, if you will, of infrastructure. So we have a hard border. So our infrastructure in the US doesn't connect to our infrastructure in Canada. We don't have to worry about any sort of issues of leakage or loss. And we don't rely on, as I said earlier, any offshore resources to support. But really how we position this is around, I would say, two key concepts. One is every organization has a responsibility to ensure their data is safe and is leveraged as responsibly as possible. So our infrastructure is designed to do that. And we've built in some key tenets like disaster recovery capabilities so that the customer doesn't have to worry about going through the pain and suffering of doing a manual recovery. I would say that the last quick point I'd add to that is the definition of a disaster is equally important here. So in the past, we may have thought about fire and brimstone type activities, which are still obviously disasters. But now things like ransomware attacks and the results that can come from that are also as potentially, if not more, disastrous, because they're like a silent killer. You don't know it's happened until it's too late. You have no notion of it happening. So we found a lot of our data protection services and our ability to diversify and store data in multiple locations in country, all under the same control plane, if you will, is helping a lot of customers deal with items or issues that they just didn't anticipate ever calling a disaster, even as late as a year and a half ago. Seemed to be a big rise of that with COVID. I think it was because a lot of people went to work from home and the attack surface got much larger. And a lot of people that were probably bad actors in the first place probably had more time on their hands. So I think that's the right way to answer your question.
Thanks, Craig. Yes, I've read some headlines about that, and you often hear that it tends to be random phishing emails that bring down these big enterprises, and it really means that you have to start not just with leveraging solutions like yours, but also with education internally on your teams about what to look for. And ironically, we actually have our biannual team-wide security checkup tomorrow, so this is good timing to be having these conversations. I'll move to Raphael for the next question. Can you talk a little bit about your technology? You have this digital twin technology that helps an organization connect systems and operationalize insights in real time. Tell us a bit about that, and then also to what degree do you embed privacy by design into your business practices?
Sure. So there's a couple pieces of that, so I'll break it down piece by piece. First, we have a library of connectors that support a wide variety of protocols commonly used in different systems, IT systems, operations, building management, sensors, etc. And we deliberately took this approach to support protocols. I think of that as the language that these systems use to speak with one another, instead of building specific connectors to any individual system or manufacturer, because that gives us the most breadth and flexibility, and frankly, the best bang for buck. And supporting a breadth of system was a table stake requirement in 2009 when we first started working with hospitals, especially given these environments have such a large amount of disparate technologies. And the reality is this is only going to be more important as more things come online and are connected. And as much as you may want everything under one ecosystem with one manufacturer, that's just not feasible in today's technology environment. That being said, connecting systems and data is not enough. And the question is really, how do we operationalize that in a meaningful way? And that allows us to unlock the full potential of that data. And that begins by making sense of this data and applying it in a meaningful way, the right person, the right time to drive the right outcomes. And this is really where our digital twin technology shines, because not only does it bring all the data together, but we apply context to that data. And through our architecture, we can do things in real time. And again, because we started in healthcare, it was important for our users, the care providers at the front line, to take action quickly and accurately. And with regards to privacy by design, one of the key principles is to embed privacy into your system design from day one. And we had to do this again because of the environment that we were working in, because we were working with very sensitive information. And as Hugh alluded to earlier, fast forward today, this is a requirement for any industry. Privacy is a top concern for everybody, and it's not just for the more highly regulated industries. So a quick example of how all these come together, we recently launched a new module called Location Sense. And it allows an organization to plug in AMI and all location-based systems and data. And then from there, we can enable a number of use cases in real time for return to work, such as managing physical distancing, or notifying someone to sanitize a room or a desk that was recently used, or to notify an employee to navigate to an area that they need with the equipment, and that's also been marked safe. So as you can see, the flexibility of how to bring the data together, the orchestration of it in a meaningful way, wrapped around the privacy angle is really important, and I think is a key ingredient for any work in this kind of environment.
Thanks, Raphael. I know as we return to offices, either in a full-time or hybrid capacity, this will become even more important, and it's great to hear about how these three solutions really work in tandem. So with that, we're going to move to the audience Q&A. Before that, you'll see on your screen some top tips from each of our experts. These will be sent out to you via email as well, so you can reference them post-event. And now we are going to move into our audience Q&A. So we had quite a few questions come in, and I encourage each of you to submit your own questions by clicking on the questions tab on your screen. And so I'll start with just a question for whoever would like to answer it. This is one I know my parents probably have, living in Prince Edward County, where the internet connection is less than stellar. Petra asks, we live on Manitoulin Island. Do you have specific adaptations for rural areas of Ontario where internet is below average?
I can comment.
Craig M, yes.
From a data protection perspective, the network reliability is always going to be a factor in this. But I would say that the one area where we can impact that is to make the act of data protection, just in its simplest form, be a passive activity that occurs in the background. So for instance, something that's doing continuous data protection on a server in a local office or a laptop will perform much better than trying to the traditional shove the golf ball through the garden hose overnight scenario, where you inevitably will have disappointment because you just don't have the capacity. So the technology exists to trickle that throughout the day, and it doesn't have to cost more. It's just a different approach.
Yeah, that's a great point. Anyone else have anything to add on rural connectivity, or I guess also just this question of how smart cities evolve into smart communities and towns instead of just larger areas like Toronto? Hugh, is that something that you're working on at Innovate Cities, or are you really just focused on the urban areas right now?
Well, our primary mission, Aaron, is involved with the urban areas. Having said that, a key focus of what we're doing is working on advancing innovation infrastructure, which means that infrastructure, which has to include broadband, has to include expanding it, and we're always looking for ways to work with others to partner to think up solutions.
Just as a comment, one of the areas that happens in rural areas is that they're typically on the end of the utility line, so their power is often terrible. We're able to bring them high quality power. And with the ability to do edge computing now, we can actually have a little data center sitting on our platform that's powered by our platform that can provide edge computing to things like farmers and that. So I think, again, we bring that intersection of kilowatts and kilobytes to help, make it a more robust system as we're able to do it on site.
And Craig, is your solution available for just commercial or residential as well?
We have one on my house, but we don't do residential. We're commercial, industrial, pretty well everything else, but typically that.
Okay, so Petra, hopefully you have the business on Manitoulin Island as well, and you can get in touch with Craig about some solutions. Moving on to another question for Hugh. Lisa asks, does Innovate Cities support non-Canadian entrants and leaders in fields looking to expand into North America?
At the moment, our mandate is focused on Canadian innovators in Southern Ontario. Having said that, we are open always to working with others, but we do have a mandate to promote Canadian innovators and Canadian jobs. But of course, by working with people internationally, that potential exists. So if she wants to drop us a line, I'm happy to have a chat.
Perfect, love it. Moving on to more about data stewardship. Victoria asks, can you elaborate more about data stewardship as well as community data ownership? So I'm not sure if Craig M, this is a question for you, or if someone else wants to jump in, but would love to know your thoughts.
Well, I'll provide my thoughts, but I'm sure everyone here actually has a thought on this, and that is part of the dilemma, is that there are still thought formulations occurring. We look at this through the lens of, do I know where my data is? Can I prove it's my data? And do I have control over how do I allow that data to be shared or used by others? So in its simplest form, I'll give you an example. In our acceptable use policy, we specifically state we will not use either derived data or data that we're storing for any clients for any secondary or tertiary use. So it's very clear. And that's one of the things that I think as Canadian companies, we can afford to be clear with users of the systems that we're building, that that's not our business case. You know, there's the old saying that if the service is free, you're the product. Well, that applies more than ever with some of the ways that I would say less than clear actors are working with systems. So one of the things that I'm really proud of is that from the very beginning, this group is focused on making sure that we have a clear path to how we can, not only are we doing and practicing data stewardship, we're actually able to demonstrate data stewardship. I think Raphael at ThoughtWire probably has some examples, some really real world examples. So I'll pass it over to him.
Sure, thank you, Craig. And I do want to echo that notion of really being clear and transparent of how you're using the data. And at ThoughtWire, it's really on a need to know basis as well. So because of how we architect our technology, everything is in memory. So once we have the data and we use it to notify a nurse, notify a porter, and that workflow is done. That's it. Like, we don't need the information beyond that. And that's important, right? Because at the end of the day, our mission is to enable these outcomes. Anything beyond that, it's outside of our business scope.
Just, Aaron, if you'll forgive me, just a key thing for us in developing a data trust is, keyword there is trust. We want the people who work with us to trust us and to understand that what we're doing is in the best interest of the community. Second thing is, we're putting forward a model. We're a not-for-profit. We're not going to be in the business of using data for our own profit purposes. And I think it's really important as part of our mission, which is trying to establish a data trust as a utility, we provide an alternative to the private data trusts that are out there now, Facebook, Google, etc. And we give all innovators access to that data to help them innovate, grow stronger, and be better. And also, it makes the life of citizens and in the communities, makes their lives better too.
Great point, Hugh. I think we saw a lot of debate around Google's initiatives in Toronto around smart cities, and part of that stemmed from the fact that it was a private company that was looking to profit off these initiatives. So it's great to hear that Innovate Cities is a not-for-profit and really has the consumer's best interest at heart. And I know, Craig M., I am the product. Every time I doom scroll on social media, that does not mean I do it any less. So we'll move to our next question. Some tangible examples, which I think is great. For all of the small business owners who are watching, Monica wants to know if the panelists can provide an example or case study of how a small business has used your solutions and the benefits that it's brought them. So maybe if you have a case study you're allowed to share publicly, or just kind of reference them vaguely, but just some tangible examples of how small businesses have benefited. Craig C., maybe I'll go to you first.
Okay, so I'll use it's a real case. I'll use it sort of generically. There was a small business in Canada, and because of the power quality problems and the power issues, they were looking at leaving the country. It was a serious problem. It wasn't the only problem, but it was a serious problem. When we were able to come to them and say, we can give you high quality power, we can protect your data from the power side, ensuring that you're secure, and we can also meet your sustainability rules and in essence, save you money over the long term, they made a decision to consider staying, and they stayed. So in certainly, if you speak to Canada specifically and the GTA specifically, there's a great number of companies. The power quality is not negotiable. It has to be correct. It has to be excellent. And secondarily, the ability to not have to invest your own core capital into it as a solution was good. So we can say that we were a major part of a fairly significant, relatively small company staying in the country. So I think that's an example. Great
example, Craig. They're probably regretting that in the winter months, but happy as we enter the summer. We do provide heat off our system as well. That's true. There you go. Raphael, what about you? What's a case study you can speak to?
For sure. So ThoughtWire works with a lot of long-term care homes, and as a small organization within these facilities, and more important than ever right now, one of the solutions we provide is to enable the frontline caregivers to access patient information very quickly. So instead of logging into 3 or 5 different systems, all with different passwords, that administrative piece is the least of their concern, right? And our mission is to make that easier so that they can go back to doing their jobs, which is taking care of the patients and our, like our most vulnerable population. So what we did with that solution was that, with a single click, you can access all the relevant patient information and records that patient has consented to, and then you can only see that information. Right. And that's, that's a good example of privacy in the sense that, as a PSW, for example, or as a nurse, I log into the system and I, pull up patient Raphael's information. I only see Raphael's information, and that's really important. And that's audited and tracked to make sure that we understand, what the user saw, and that's recorded, and that's really important in these types of environments. And I would also talk a bit about some of the technologies available out there. I think typically when we think of technologies in buildings and cities, we think of very expensive, very complex, very difficult to use technologies. And the reality is, it doesn't have to be. There's a lot of peel and stick sensors. There's actually a company within the Innovate Cities ecosystem that's based in Ottawa. And there are peel and stick technologies that you can just put onto a wall and they can start tracking occupancy, light, noise, air quality, etc. And then they can also speak back to the core system to send the data to enable these use cases. So I'd encourage that, when we think about these types of technologies to, not shy away from it, but really think about, what are the options available? And you'd be surprised that there are low cost, low touch examples that can enable some very powerful outcomes.
It's a great example, Raphael, especially with the health workers in the context of COVID-19. And it seems incredible to me that you could peel off a sticker, stick it on your wall at your office, and it would be able to start tracking those things. But smart cities are just getting smarter. Thanks in part to you, Raphael. Okay, Craig M., what about you? A case study of a small business.
Yeah, so I think a composite example for me would be we have about 500 small businesses across Canada who use us today to vault offsite data. So in the past, they might have written it to a tape or put it onto a USB drive and took it home with them every night. Now they vault their data with us. And unfortunately, since we went into lockdown, we've seen, as I mentioned earlier, a marked increase in the number of ransomware attacks. A week doesn't go by that we're not contacted by a client asking us to assist them in recovering from ransomware. So we introduced a feature a year and a half ago called Ransom Guard that actually takes a copy of the backup data and stores it in a way that it is not accessible programmatically from outside of our building. So when they have a ransomware attack, oftentimes the ransomware will also wipe out the offsite backup, but we have another copy of it that cannot be destroyed. And it's sad, but I would say we probably get 3 requests, maybe 4 requests a month for that. And that's real world, because there is nothing else that someone can do when they get to that level other than, relent and pay, which is, no one recommends that. So I feel pretty proud of that.
That's a great example, Craig. My response would be to see if Liam Neeson was available to go and Taken style get my data back. So I think yours is a little bit more practical. Hugh, last word to you here before we move into closing remarks. Are there any case studies or examples that you've seen within the Innovate Cities ecosystem that you wanted to highlight, or any final words?
Well, what I would highlight is we're here to promote our innovators, and the stories they tell are just some of the stories the Canadian innovators can tell and our founding partners can tell. The technology that we have available is better than the brand names. And I would really encourage those in the audience to look not just at these innovators, but across our spectrum and across the Canadian spectrum. It's very important if Canada is going to be continue to be a leading country. So those would be my final words, Erin.
Thank you, Hugh. Well, I appreciate Craig Clydesdale, Craig McClellan, and Raphael Wong, as well as Hugh, for joining us today to share thoughts about smart cities technology. It was a really insightful question, and thank you to the audience for such great questions. Appreciate that. Before we move into closing remarks, I just want to remind everyone watching about the digital needs assessment, which Lee spoke about in the intro. This online tool takes about 20 minutes to complete and assess the core competencies and gaps in the digital capacity of your business and how it ranks relative to your industry. I went through it in about 20 minutes on a Sunday afternoon, and it gives me a lot of great intel to be able to fuel my tech strategy moving forward. So I highly recommend it. To take the digital needs assessment today, simply click on the graphic to the right of your screen in the info tab. And that, unfortunately, is all the time we have for today. They say time flies when you're having fun, and that's certainly true of today's event. Before everyone signs off, I do want to tell you a bit more about the upcoming sessions that we have scheduled. On May 5th, Innovate Cities and WRAP will be hosting a half-day digital certificate workshop on how businesses can strategically manage their data and intellectual property, which is such a great follow-up from all of the topics we've been talking about today. To register, simply take your digital needs assessment, and a member of the WRAP team will be in touch with you. And on May 12th, you can join me again at 11 a.m. for our next webcast in partnership with Canadian Manufacturers and Exporters, or CME for short. We will be discussing the challenges faced by the manufacturing industry and how an online sales strategy can generate revenue and enhance operational efficiency, maybe using some of Craig C's power as well. Registration for this webcast will be open shortly. And to register for all upcoming sessions, you can visit supportbusiness.bot.com and select webinars and videos. Again, thank you so much for spending your morning with us. We hope you have a wonderful rest of your day, and thank you again for joining us.